Yo, what up, what up? It's your man, Big Brandon Carter, and it is an honor to be here with one of my favorite authors, Ryan Holiday.
What's going on,
Thanks
man?
for having me. No, it's good to be here.
That book, The Ego is the Enemy, yo, man, it really came to me at a critical time in my life, and I feel like it really impacted me, and I just want to tell you that I appreciate the book, and I gained a lot of insight from it, man, so thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
So your last two books, The Obstacle is the Way and Ego is the Enemy, were about Stoic philosophy. And I know that those philosophies have really impacted my life
Sure.
and made me stronger in a variety of ways. For one, when my father killed himself, he shot himself in the head. I hate to say it, I hate to say it like this, but that made me stronger. It made me a stronger man. It made me more resilient. And I would like your take on how adversity actually makes you stronger. I know you talk about it a lot in The Obstacles the Way, but I would just like to hear it from horse's mouth.
It's not just those major events that shape us and make us better, but it's the minor ones too, right? It's like, I'm driving to work yesterday or driving to my office where I am now, and it takes me twice as long to get to the office that it takes me on a normal day. So am I going to be upset by that? Is it going to ruin the course of the rest of my day? Or am I going to get phone calls that I need to get done? Am I going to listen to a podcast that's going to make me better? Am I just going to take the time to think? These are all choices that I have, right? A few years ago, I went through sort of a nasty business dispute. And I remember saying to myself, look, this is practice for having to be in these kind of situations, which are an inevitable part of life. And last night, I was dealing with another situation where something similar had happened. And I remember actually thinking, like, if I hadn't dealt with this thing a couple years ago, this situation would be much worse right now, and I wouldn't know how to handle it. And it's practice for me for I think what the Stoics are thinking about, it's funny. A lot of motivational people are always talking about positive visualization, right? Like visualizing what you want to happen. Well, the Stoics are sort of the opposite, right?
Exactly. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. The Stoics are always thinking, what horrible thing could happen in the future? And am I prepared for the 1% chance of that happening?
Exactly. No.
And so I remember like when this thing happened last night, it was like, look, worse things are going to happen to me in the future. I'm sure of it. So I'm going to deal with this right now in a low stakes situation. And I'm just going to be a little bit more prepared for the next time I have to have a confrontation with someone, or I have to sort of protect my boundaries, or I have to say, hey, this is not how I want things to be done, and I'm not going to accept this, right? So I think the Stoics are always looking at the adversity or the difficult things that happen to us in our lives, and they're saying, not only what good can I derive from this, but hey, this is preparation for an inherently unpredictable and sometimes cruel world.
So sometimes I think about it, like, for instance, when I'm in traffic and I think, oh man, it sucks I'm in traffic, but I check myself and I say something to myself like, well, why do I think I should have no traffic? Why do I feel entitled to a smooth ride?
No, that's a great way to think about it. You're totally right. And it's like what the Stoics are also saying is there's an exercise from Seneca where he's saying, like, you're going on a ship, you're taking a boat trip, or you're traveling by ship, and he's saying you should think about how it could crash, or think about how it could be delayed by weather, or think about how you could be attacked by pirates, and he says, nothing happens to the wise man against his expectation, because he's considered all the things that are happening. And I think it's interesting to go to your traffic thing again. It's like, and to mine, it's like, I know it takes me about 30 minutes to get to my office. Yeah. So that's the fastest that it will take, right? So I expect every day, 30 minutes, when really if I expected 45 minutes, I would never be disappointed, right? And so it's this way that we feel somewhat entitled to things going exactly our way, and then we feel wronged when they don't go our way.
So I guess we're not taught that growing up. I have this thing called offensive pessimism. I made this up. You can have this one. Offensive pessimism.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
whatever's going.
So with this offensive pessimism, I envision things going wrong, like the worst thing that can happen. And a lot of my, friends or business partners, they think I'm overly cautious, but
Well,
I just know how bad it is.
look, if you're overly optimistic and it works out, like you're never proven wrong, that was a great strategy. But
Yeah.
the problem is you can't actually bet on that, And
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting how we sort of expect, like a few months ago, I got injured and I couldn't work out for like about a week or so. And it was like, why did I think that I could go my whole life without being like, why did I think that I would
Right.
never be injured? Right.
Yeah.
Why did I think it would every time I roll my ankle, it would turn out to be nothing. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it turns out to be something. And
Yeah.
and the more we can tell ourselves that these are realities of life, the less devastated we'll be when they happen, and the more quickly we can bounce back from them. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone does something rude or screwed up to you, and you're, why did this happen? This is so unfair. How could they do this to me? And all you're doing is wallowing in self-pity. That's precious energy that you're not spending towards your reply, towards your response, or what you're going to do instead.
And that's a good point, man. I feel like fairness is an illusion. Like it's not a real thing. It's not reality.
Well, here's the thing though. Fair is there's I'm forgetting who this from, but there's an interesting thought exercise that philosophers use where basically they say, like, you should pretend that you have free will, so you make your choices, but that no one else has free will. So when someone else does something to you, it's like they didn't mean that, they didn't have a choice, it wasn't their fault. But then when I do something, I want to make sure that everything that I do is as fair as possible to other people. But then when something unfair happens to me, I want to make sure that I'm not bemoaning how unfair it is. I just say, hey, that's reality, right? And I think the other thing that, another way to think about this when stuff happens is you have no idea when something bad happens that it may have saved you from something much worse, right? Or that what might seem fair in the small scale might be massively fair, massively generous in the long term to you personally, right? Like, it's interesting to think that, both of us living in America, both of us being successful, both of us having all of our limbs, there are literally millions of people who would gladly trade for the worst day of your life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like sometimes I think about, today there's going to be a kid born in the Hamptons to a rich family, and at the same day today there's going to be a kid born in Syria, right? Like in a war zone. Where's the fairness in that? Like there's no fairness. Fairness is an illusion.
But we don't think about that on a day-to-day basis, and Stoicism is a sort of if you read it, it's a reminder to have these kinds of thoughts. It's to go, hey, have you really been hurt by this? Is it really true that it's as bad as you say? Or they'll ask you questions like, one of my favorites is he says, are you afraid of death because you won't be able to do this anymore? Like, so we look at how trivial some of the things that we get obsessed by or we focus on, and we don't really think about them in the long term. So Stoicism is just, it's thought exercises, it's sort of prompts that just make you question the things that you might selfishly take for granted on the course of a given day.
No, that's amazing. Like,
I'm from Southside Chicago. If anybody knows anything about that environment, it can be a pretty rough place to grow up. It's just, poverty. It's a goddamn war zone. And when I moved to New York after college, I had a job at Abercrombie. Right, it's the only job I can get, and all I had to do was stand there, right? And there was a lot of other kids from, middle class backgrounds, just from good backgrounds, probably had it good their whole life, and they were always complaining, talking about, man, this place sucks, this is awful, I hate it here.
Meanwhile, I'm thinking this is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Totally.
I get paid $14 an hour to stand. It was incredible, and I think that's what you say. Like, you kind of like when I go to LA, they don't appreciate the the great weather as much as I do when I come to New
Sure.
York in the winter. It's like, this is amazing. Is that what you mean when you said that being born in privilege could be kind of a curse? Actually,
Yeah. You first off, you never know the extent of someone else's struggle, right? You have no idea, and the other part of it is, yeah, that every fortune comes with a misfortune, you could say, and every misfortune comes with a fortune, right? So, in your situation, you were able to appreciate something that other people weren't able to appreciate. You were taught things and taught lessons and learned facts about the world that other people were not taught, right? And of course, you also probably missed out on things and material comforts, but I think what the Stoic is saying is, let's focus on what benefits are inherent in any situation, and let's not focus on what we've been deprived on, because we control only that attitude, right? And so we might as well give ourselves the attitude that pushes us forward, that makes us feel that seizes on what we are empowered to do, and not dwell on what we've been deprived of, or what is holding us back. And I think it's interesting, we have discussions about adversity, and there is the very real kind of adversity that you went through, and that I did not go through, having been born to parents in suburbia. Yet we all wake up the same every day. We both wake up and things don't go the way we're like. There's not just the adversity when you're younger, but there's also the day-to-day realities. Like, you run a business and I run a business, and this you have a problem with your accounting software, and then you were having problems with Skype this morning, right? Like, there's also those minor situations, and how you choose to deal with them determines whether you're going to have a good day or a bad day, just in the same way that other situations determine whether you're going to have a good life or a bad life. And how you choose to respond. Like, if Skype wasn't working, and if you said, like, if you got mad, if you decided that this was horrible, if you got really frustrated, it might, not only would that mess with your attitude, but then it doesn't help you with the situation that you then have to deal with, which is, okay, how am I going to find a solution, and how am I going to do this interview, and how am I going to get the best out of it? Like, I'm giving a talk, right? Like, let's say I'm giving a talk in front of an audience. I don't control the audience. I don't control, the weather. I don't control any of these things, but I do control what I bring to that situation. So I want to focus the entirety of my energy on doing the best possible job and salvaging the most out of it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like, I planned for Skype to fuck up, so I had Google Hangouts ready, and I had another computer. Like, I consistently plan for things to go wrong.
Yeah, look, and that's part of Stoicism too. It's not just, oh, whatever happens, happens. It's also, it's thinking, like, the reason you're supposed to visualize negatively is not so you go, and that's why I should just sit here and not do anything. It's to say, hey, if this happens, I'll respond in this way. And if this other thing happens, I'll respond in this way. So it's having a plan B and C and D and E. And then, by the time you get to plan F, maybe you go, okay, it wasn't meant to be. I'm going to do something else instead.
Yo, offensive pessimism.
That's
I love it. That's
my
great
gift,
phrase.
Ryan. I want you to put that in.
I love it.
That's my gift to you. I'm just one more thing on this.
I've gotten in the habit of making things worse for myself, like putting myself into discomfort, because I feel like it makes me stronger. I was wondering what you thought about that. Do you do that?
I do. Look, I think you always want to be challenging yourself and pushing yourself in the work that you do, because that's how you experience those situations. It's very easy once you get to a certain point to sort of find your comfort zone and stay in it and not be challenged. That's not to say that life won't visit challenges upon you, but you're going to experience less, right? But I think exercise and working out is a great metaphor for this. Like, I try to run every single day, and I don't care what the weather is. I don't care how I'm feeling. It's something I'm going to subject myself to and force myself to. And often I'll find, like, I run in the afternoons, for instance, and I'll find that I'll be tired, that the day won't have gone very well, that maybe I wasn't feeling great. But that hour that I'm out there sweating, when I come back, I'm ready to go again. I've been recharged. And I think being able to find that, hey, I do better when I'm challenged is a great thing to teach yourself. And the other thing, Tim Ferriss told me this. He was saying, you know, if you work out every single day, you have a guaranteed win every single day. So your company might be declaring bankruptcy, but you set a new PR, or you know, you got a great rush of endorphins. You'll at least be able to tell yourself like, hey, that went well. And that's something that the reason I seek out that hardship every day is that it's a hardship that I'm sort of guaranteed to overcome.
Yo, that's a good point. So what do you think about people who say, hey, man, you just got to enjoy the process. You just got to enjoy the process. You know, you got to, if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. Like, not working is something to be admirable about. But I have the mindset where I don't give a fuck how I feel about something. All I care about is results.
I don't really care about how I feel about anything. I don't care about the results, you know, and I care about.
Yeah, look, I think it being present and enjoying what happened is important. I guess what I'm saying is like yesterday I did an hour and it was, you know, 92 or 93 degrees outside. It was fucking hot, right? Like, but I didn't say like, hey, is this going to be enjoyable or not? I said, look, this is what I do, and come hell or high water, I'm going to do it, you know? Right. And it was enjoyable. It wasn't enjoyable at first, but I pushed through that. It's like on the other side of that resistance is often that thing. And so I think that's the problem with people who are like, you know, I'll just sort of go with the flow. I'll take it as it happens. That can work. But, you know, it's often on the other side of what you're afraid of that you experience really great things. And you have to have the power to push through that.
Yeah, I think if you don't have some sort of struggle, then you won't really appreciate when things are good. Galileo said there's nothing harder to bear than the succession of fair days, right? Meaning if things are always good, well, then it gets boring, you're used to it. And, you know, Freud said happiness is based off unhappiness in the past, meaning you know, perpetual happiness is an illusion. You have to be unhappy in order to be happy, the way you have to have sour to appreciate sweet.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And look, Viktor Frankl said, you know, happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. I think that's the other part of it. It's that happiness for me and pleasure comes from doing the work, and that happiness sort of comes indirectly. It's not about, hey, I want to have a comfortable day every day. I want things to go exactly my way every single day. It's instead like, look, shit's going to happen. It's going to come my way. I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to be flexible, but I'm always going to be advancing towards the direction that I want to go. And the feelings are going to come from that pursuit.
So how does that work with, you know, it seems like these books are similar. They're the same size. You know, you got some ancient stuff on this one too. How are they different, right? You know, I've read 2 books a week, at least for the last 10 years. But this might be one of my favorite books of all time. And they're both great, man. You're really become one of my favorite authors.
These two, man. I don't know. I don't know. These are really good books. But what makes this one different than this?
Yeah, that means a lot to me. That's very cool. Look, I found that The Obstacle is the Way is about external obstacles, and Ego is the Enemy is about our internal obstacles, right? It's about the way that we get in our own way, and that our entitlements and our attitudes and our need to be better than other people, or to dominate other people, or to, you know, I think a lot of us have issues with our parents, right? We need them to accept us, or we want because we didn't get their approval, or we didn't get enough from them. We think that, hey, if I make $1 million, or if I get a certain number of Instagram followers, suddenly I'll feel good about myself. And that's just not true. That's not where it comes from. And so I wanted to look at the way that our ego and our attitudes create obstacles for ourselves. And that I think you find, and I imagine you've interviewed a number of successful people. I actually find that at the highest level, at the most elite performers are are incredibly humble. They're incredibly dedicated to what they do. They might have an act that they put on to intimidate their competitors or to build their brand or whatever, but Kanye West doesn't become Kanye West if he's that when he's writing music, right? When he's sitting there with a pad and a pen, he is humble and open and vulnerable. It's when he's on stage or when he's marketing that he acts this certain way. And I think sincerely he has some ego problems, and they cause, issues for him in his life and his career. But you can't be one of the world's best people if you are driven by ego in the actual pursuit of your craft, because ego is a weakness, right? A boxer looks for an egotistical opponent because they're going to overestimate their abilities and underestimate their weaknesses, right? Like, I love when I'm matched up against an egotistical person, because they are not, I'm in reality and they're not in reality. But ultimately our contest is decided by reality. So that's what the book's about.
Yeah, man, no, that's a good point, man. And I really like when you talked about Howard Hughes, and I really like that point when you talk about Henry or Howard Hughes. He's been glorified, with The Aviator and all these other movies, but this gave me a whole new perspective on him.
Yeah, I mean, look, Donald Trump is very rich and very successful, but I wouldn't want to trade places with him. You know what I mean? Like, would you want to live inside that head? Probably not. Like, you want what he has, but people want what he has, but they don't understand what was required to get it. And I think what we miss is that you can get a lot of those same things by not being that person. In the same way that, like, look, you can get strong by doing steroids, or you can get strong by doing the work in the gym. And one is a lot more pleasurable than the other and has no side effects, so that's what the book's about.
Yeah, man, I'm really glad I came across this book because, I read about successful people, hear about successful people.
I know where I want to be, things I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I look at some people who've been there. I'm like, man, do I have to be like Steve Jobs?
And do I have to be like that? And that's what I used to struggle with. Like, I read Tim Grover's book about Michael Jordan, and he's one of my heroes. Growing up in Chicago, somebody I look up to, idolize, and he was a jerk sometimes. He punched Steve Kerr in the mouth. Is a story about him flipping Luke Longley over a table, and I was like, man, do I have to be like that? But after I read this, it kind of gave me a perspective. Like, okay, cool, maybe I don't have to be a jerk all the time in order to be successful.
I read an interesting book. I think it was Phil Jackson's book, and he was talking about Kobe Bryant, and he was talking to Rick Fox, I think. And Rick Fox was saying, Kobe's problem is that he thinks everyone is Kobe, and instead of just holding himself to that standard, Kobe holds everyone around himself to the same standards. So he's perpetually disappointed in other people all the time. And that's and look, I do that too. And it's not a happy way to live. It's a miserable way to live, right? Like, you can hold yourself to whatever standard you want, and you should, right? You should want the absolute best out of yourself. But if you are expecting things from other people that they haven't told you that they are striving for, you've now tied up your happiness in what other people are doing, and you're going to be miserable. And it's not as if Rick Fox wasn't a good basketball player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason that both of them are not, like, both of them are in the top 0.001% of people who have ever played the game. So clearly both attitudes work, and they get you where you want to go. And then, look, I think you look at someone like Kobe Bryant, and it's like, he was a great basketball player, but look at the Lakers now. Like, he wrecked the Lakers, and Jason Whitlock has talked about this. Kobe Bryant was so good, but then it was also impossible for him to play for other people. So you want to say, yes, look, it made Kobe great, but it also prevented him from being as great as he could have been had he been more able to collaborate with other people. Could Jordan have enjoyed his playing time more? Could he have won another championship? Right? We all have our flaws. As great, whatever we're great at, we have an equal amount of flaws. And if we can work on those flaws, and a lot of those flaws are rooted in ego, I think we can be even greater at what we're trying to do.
No, that's because I've been really like just ignoring this is some flaw. Like I'm the messiest person in the world. Like when I look at your bookshelf and I looked at mine, but I kind of just said, I mean, I blame Tim Ferriss, but because he said focus in 4-hour work. He said, yeah, focus on your strengths. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But I don't want to blame. I want to take responsibility, right? Ego is then.
You just need to find someone who can help you get organized.
Yeah.
You got to outsource. You got to listen to Tim Ferriss there too. You got to outsource.
I didn't follow all the steps.
I don't dust these books.
My own books, or not dusting them. That's my problem.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And now I know we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
But another one of my favorite authors is Robert Greene, and I know you used to work with him. I'm not exactly sure what capacity, but did that, man? Because I don't know. You're turning into one of my favorite authors. I'm not saying that, but I really mean that. But he's one of mine. Is working with him? Is that why these books are so good?
I mean, that's why those books exist. Like they wouldn't exist without Robert. I was Robert's research assistant for a number of years. He showed me how to be a writer. Like I think a lot of times we think like, oh, I'll just figure it out. Like I want to do this, so I'll just figure it out. When really it's better to find someone who has figured it out and attach yourself to them and apprentice underneath them. And that's what I did with Robert. And, I feel like not only did I learn a lot of skills from him, but, when you work for a great man, and Robert is a great man, you can't have an attitude, you can't think you're better than you are, because you're comparing yourself against them and everything that they've done. And so, working for him in my early 20s was incredibly important in terms of me learning the right lessons and, finding the right way to be a man. And I'm just very grateful to him.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it worked, man. It worked, man. Because you're really turning into my favorite author, man. I don't throw that around.
That means a lot to me.
Yeah, man. I read one article that you wrote on your blog that said reading is so important that you could steal books if you couldn't afford them. Can you explain to me why? I know why reading is so important to me, because it helps.
Sure.
It's really the reason I'm in the hood anymore. But like, why would you?
Right. Warren Buffett is one of the richest men in the world. He says that the best investment he ever made was buying a book in like 1960 by an author named Benjamin Graham, who taught him all about investing. And I think the same thing. I've read, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which influenced these two books. That cost me $15 in 2006. That was one of the single greatest investments that I made in my career and in my life. So the idea that like, hey, if I couldn't afford a book, or they didn't have it at the library, I would do literally anything to get it. Do you know what I mean? So look, thankfully I've not had to steal many books, although I've certainly lifted a few from friends' shelves over the years. I'm just saying that I would never let anything get in the way of me reading a book. If someone can't afford my books and they steal them off the internet, and it makes their life better and they get better for it, I'm not crying myself to sleep at night. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm fine with that. Yeah. Like, I know that if I do a good job as an author, eventually when they make money, they'll buy something from me. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just saying that, like, I hear from a lot of people that go like, oh, I want to read that someday, or like, I'll wait for it to come out in paperback. It's like, I have an unlimited budget when it comes to buying books, and provided that I can eat and sleep, books are the third most important expense on my budget.
I go crazy with it, and I don't have a budget either. How often? What's like? Do you put an hour on it? Like, how many hours?
I don't put an hour on it, but I just do it a lot, right? Like, so I tried to go to bed early last night. I couldn't sleep. I was having trouble sleeping, so I stayed up and I read another 2 hours, and I read anytime I have quiet alone time, I'm reading. If I'm on a plane, I'm reading. If I'm sitting in the waiting room at a doctor's office, I'm waiting. If I show up early to someone, I show up early somewhere, I'm sitting in the car and I'm reading. I'm just reading anywhere and everywhere. That's what I do. I read when I'm eating. Books are important to me and I make time for it.
I keep a book. I keep my Kindle and probably 2 or 3 books.
Totally.
It goes with me everywhere I go.
Totally. Look, you don't.
Yeah.
If it's important to you, you'll make time for it. If it's not, you won't. And so that comes first.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, I know you have something to do at 11.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's all good, man. I don't want to hold you up. Can you tell us the pre-order of the new book, and then where they can pre-order the new book? So
people can pre-order the new book. It's The Daily Stoic. It's on Amazon, or you can just go to the website, dailystoic.com. You can check out my site, ryanholiday.net, or follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm just at Ryan Holiday.
Yeah, and if you guys, my fans, listen, if you guys order the book, send me the receipt. Send it to support@Bro Laboratories. Then I'll send you some free ebook gifts, man. Just a little bonus.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Because I enjoy Ryan's material so much, man. I'm like a super fan. I'm kind of, I'm geeking out a little bit right now.
Well, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, man. It's really been an honor. Honestly, this is like almost, a little, almost nervous talking to you, man. But it's been an honor. Guys, make sure you get that book. Send me the receipt. Support@Bro Laboratories, and I'll send you guys some free gifts when you order Ryan's new book. All right, peace.